Great, David. Thank you so much. And David, this is Matthew B Lytell. Just wanted to thank everybody for attending today, and thanks so much for your continued business and support for us. David and I have known each other for a long time, and David is one of the most knowledgeable cybersecurity experts out there. So David, we're so blessed to have you join us today, and thank you so much, and we're excited to hear your presentation.
Well, thank you again. Are we ready, or are we waiting a minute?
We sure are. We are ready.
Okay. Well, everybody, we're going to talk about a topic I think that's in the news, if not every day, some days even hourly, cybersecurity. There's a lot going on, as we well know. We see, I guess, Russian information one way or the other in the news. But to get started, I kind of want to put everything in perspective. And this is not really a slide, but I want you to just sit back and think a minute about what is a society and how does it function. And if you analogize a society, or a society we're in, is to a piece of fabric. And that piece of fabric functions until it's torn or until it's ripped. And once it's torn or once it's ripped, it doesn't function as well. And that's what I want you to think about, are the rips and the tears in the societal fabric that we call breaches, cyber breaches. I'm going to cover, for the most part in my presentation, the SMB, the small to medium business, not necessarily the large enterprise. You can think of that as just a whole lot larger. But the SMB is actually what makes America tick in my mind. It's the small to medium businesses here. And the risks there are exponentially more than the enterprise because of the dollars that are out there. And people just trying to make a living can't go out and hire a technology stack, hire a chief information security officer. What do they do, and what are the risks they face today? Our first slide, if we'll go to that, is something from a guy named Robert Muir, who's been in the news about hourly lately. But once upon a time, he was director of the FBI back in 2012. And if you haven't seen these quotes, there are some of the most famous cybersecurity quotes. And Mr. Muir back then said there's only two types of companies, and those are the ones that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. And later he amended that to say, and it's converging even more into companies that have been hacked and those that will be hacked again. And it goes without saying that once you've been hacked, you become fair target, fair game, because people, the criminals, know that you can be violated. These are the large data breaches to date, and you can look at those numbers. They're fairly large numbers, and of course, these aren't SMBs by any stretch of the imagination, but if you start putting metrics to these numbers of $148 per record, and you look at Equifax at 146 million users, then you can see the dollar size of what these breaches actually cost. And that's not counting reputational, loss of customer, just general, again, societal tear cost. I do have, and again, $148 a record. If it's a healthcare organization, that jumps up to about $408 a record. So you can see that it's very lucrative for the criminals to get into these large enterprises. But again, we're talking about the SMB. I throw Ashley Madison in here. I mean, that's the case everybody giggles about, the married dating service. But again, if you go back to this analogy of the societal fabric, I unfortunately represented several of the Ashley Madison executives, and there was one common question that each one asked me that was caught up in Ashley Madison. And it's not the question you probably have in your mind. You know, some of you might think, what do I do about my family? What do I do about my marriage? The common most question asked was, should I consider suicide? Think about that in terms of the societal fabric and what that means. So these things are very disruptive. They do it's some very intrinsic tearing into the fabric. And I now want to go to the next slide on the brief history of time, borrowing a little bit from Stephen Hawking. This is all fairly new. I don't know the age of the people on the group, but certainly this is all my lifetime, where the real internet begins in the early 1980s. First network just a little bit earlier with just 100 terminals connected, 100 servers connected. Think about that. We'll get into the IoT in just a minute and talk about how that has just exponentially run beyond that. But in the late 1980s, the Cray XMP1 supercomputer was touted as the fastest computer of all time at 200 million calculations per second. And you take the iPhone 7, it's much faster than that today. So that's where we've come in just a very short period of time. And one thing I'll leave you with is, I guess, somewhat negative but overarching principle is Windows 10 alone has 60 million lines of code. So it's impossible within 60 million lines of code for someone not to find a flaw somewhere. So everything we have has a flaw within it. However, one of my quotes I'm most quoted for is there's no patch for stupidity or ignorance of the risk. We can't practice security by obscurity. We must know that liability does exist and that cyber breaches do exist, so we can't ignore them. But we're going to talk about what can we do. I've talked about the SMB. It's surprising to most people to know that U.S. Chamber defines a small to medium business in the U.S. as under 1.2 billion in revenue or 1,000 employees. So I think it's a lot larger than most people realize. The IoT, if you haven't heard this term IoT, it is is where the highest growth is in this entire digital world. IoT stands for Internet of Things. So just to show you how fast we're growing digitally, count to 8 seconds. Just go 1001 all the way to 1008. In just that period of time, 150 new devices have been connected to the Internet of Things. That's 61,500 per hour, 1.5 million per day. There's more than 7.4 billion devices connected on the planet right now, which is more than the humans that are on the planet. And by 2020, estimates of connected devices on the planet, the old number was 26 billion. I think the most accepted new number is 75 billion devices on the planet. So there's rapid exponential growth. And when we add to this advent of the IoT, cloud computing, blockchain, and the bring your own device phenomenon, in other words, your iPad or your cell phone, then we come to this conclusion that if it can be connected, it will be connected to everyone on the planet unless protected. And we have to deal with that. And when we look into the SMB and we look and try to see what can possibly be connected within our offices or within our space, these are just a small number of SMBs just to the office. And the temperature control system, I've added that in there just so I can go offline for a second to tell you everybody's familiar with the Target breach and the millions of people that were breached as a result of the Target breach. If you're not aware, Target wasn't breached. A temperature control firm, an HVAC firm in Sharpsburg, Pennsylvania, named Fazio Mechanical, two-man firm, small firm, the hackers actually entered into their controls. They were doing the temperature controls for Target, went through that system to get into the entire point of sale systems of all the Targets, and within 9 days were able to exfiltrate hundreds of millions worth of data. And I think to date, that's cost Target $3.2 billion. But again, any kind of IoT means there is connection, and connection into everybody else. So even when we get, and I'm sure Sheldon's going to get into the more of the individual stuff, the smart home today, think of the IoTs of the smart home or the smart car. So again, there's possibility of being connected everywhere, and unless protected, then everything is fair game. There's some companies out there that are just focusing directly on IoT security. They're doing a great job. There's one out of California, 802 Secure, and they focus strictly on these IoT models. And I'm going to throw a few names out there as we pass through this to tell you who I've dealt with or who I like. Skip to the next slide. Pertinent facts. There's some facts in here I think that are will be surprising to most of you, but 70% of the cyber attacks target SMBs. Again, SMBs under $1.2 billion in revenue or 1,000 employees. Skip down 2 dots, and 60% of SMBs go out of business within 6 months of suffering a cyber attack. That's a phenomenal figure. You got a 70% chance of being attacked. You got a 60% chance of being out of business. That's not the most positive of statistics as I see it. The 75% of employees leave their computers unsecured. I think Sheldon's going to talk about that a little bit in his presentation. The U.S. Chamber number for disruption to normal operations and remediation following a cyber attack is $3.5 million. Now, clearly, this doesn't include reputational and customer loss damages. A normal attack will cause at least 3 class action lawsuits. The last one, I really like this one. SMB owners would rather pay up to $125,000 in ransom rather than disclose they've been breached. That's a Google statistic. What are the threats? The threats, we have the APTs, the advanced persistent threats. We look at these as the bank robberies. They're the ones, there's great planning. There's the getaway car. There's the plan before. It's kind of the Ocean's 11 type hit where it's totally planned out. And these are the ones we read about a lot. The phishing attacks are the ones you see every day where you answer the wrong email and money gets wired out of your account or something bad happens to your business. And again, we're going to talk about solutions in just a minute and how important employee training is in this area. Ransomware is the exact opposite of an APT. It's the pickpocket in Times Square. It's people wanting to come in, encrypt your files, lock them up, and demand a ransom. And these are totally preventable with any cybersecurity that you have out there. But again, you've got to prevent it. The business email compromise, these guys watch what you're doing. You've got to watch what you put online. Just a few months ago, CFO company gets an email. The owner is overseas. Owner emails the CFO and says, "How's your daughter doing? I hope she's recovering from the flu. Oh, by the way, I just hit a big deal here overseas. Can you wire immediately $135,000?" The whole thing was socially engineered. It wasn't really the CEO. But they knew, they'd been watching the CFO's email, knew daughter was sick, made it sound real, pickpocketed that quick, $135,000, no law enforcement cares at that small number. So it's a clean hit, gone. Malicious insiders inside your organization, it's tough to really prevent. There is software that does look at what employees do, but again, training is paramount in this area. Mobile devices. If your smartphone, laptop, and tablets aren't encrypted, and you send stuff from your behind the firewall information from your network, you send it to an unencrypted device, it's subject to what we call man-in-the-middle attacks, and you got to understand that. The cloud storage and Wi-Fi risk. There's some myths that I hear, and I get to do these presentations all over the country, and some of my favorite myths are, well, we're in the cloud, we don't have to worry. Well, if you go read your cloud contract, you fully indemnify your cloud service provider for data coming in, from data circulating within the cloud, and for data that's exfiltrated from the cloud. So that's a myth. Cybersecurity is even more important in your cloud organization. Another great myth, I had someone stand up at the beginning of a speech the other day and said, I don't need to be here, I use Apple, apples aren't hackable. And I said, well, sit down and just spend a little time with me today, and perhaps we'll have a road to Damascus before this is over.
Hey, David.
Yes.
This is Sheldon. I just want to jump in on that. That's an excellent point. And one of the things about cloud storage in particular, we're seeing a huge trend around what we call freemium services. And I think it's to your Dropbox point there, where this some service with a cool name, it's on the cloud, you just log in and you can start using it. The problem is part of their business model is to get you to upgrade to the premium version of the service, and that's where you get the proper security controls, the encryption, and the like. So that's another trend to be aware of as it relates to cloud.
And that's an incredibly important point. So thank you. Let's see, where are we? The next slide, I'm going to skip. Emerging legal requirements for cybersecurity. Just understand that the laws are changing and evolving every day. If you Google my name or if you email me, I'll be glad to provide you. I had 3 articles published last year, but one of them deals with target breach, and the number one basic legal theory behind the target breach was just a simple negligence per se action. And again, that rendered about $3.2 billion in damages. If your business out there in your contractual obligations, you got to have push down, both up and down through your supply chain that passes cybersecurity along. The protection of records requires a comprehensive information. Basically, you start with, what are your crown jewels? You can't protect everything. You've got to be diligent in what you want to protect. At your home, you want to protect everything within the home, but you certainly can't protect everything in the yard. So you think about that. We start with, what do you want to protect? And then you think about how you want to protect that. And encryption, segmentation, multi-factor authentication, firewalling, and I'm a big fan of IPS firewall. Whether there's 2 types: IDS, which is detection firewalls, and that just tell you something's wrong, versus firewalls that actually tell you something is wrong and then destroy what's there. They take it to a sandbox and destroy it. I think the first, or the former, is the buggy whip. It's archaic unless you're super technical genius. You want something that's going to not only tell you what's going on, but it's going to go ahead and destroy it for you. And this comes through a risk assessment. And I think as an SMB, you've got to start out with, can cybersecurity be handled in-house? And I think the business person, businesswoman, that's your first question is, if you think you can, does that make sense? If no, can you procure a managed service? Now, I am actually a believer that for the SMB, that ultimately security is going to become a service, that you don't have to pioneer this on your own. And there's some great firms out there that are doing security as a service for just a few $100 to a few $1,000s a month. They're able to give you the firewalling you need, the endpoint service you need, and the email services you need, and they monitor that 24/7, 365 for you through a security operations center. I think that is going to be the next evolution and the next big thing that you'll see in cybersecurity. I work closely with a firm in Charlotte called ROCUS, ROCUS Networks, and they do a magnificent job. They actually do our law firm. And again, lawyers are some of the most attacked people in the world because we get all the information, we get all the dirt, we have all the client trust stuff. And so it's very important that as a law firm, we are as protected as we can be. Sheldon, I know, is going to talk about strong passwords. It's not A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or the word password, but he's going to lay in some more information on that. Encryption, hitting a simple encryption key and having your stuff that you don't want anybody else to see. I always say, if you wouldn't want your mother to see this, then you should hit the encryption button. And that's just simply because every one of us out there, every single one of us out there, no matter how big or small, we're interesting to someone. And sometimes it's just a script kiddie that's doxing. These are all new buzzwords where people just surf the internet for dirt. And encryption is terribly important. Public Wi-Fi, you got to be really careful with that. I call it the Starbucks flu. If you want to give away all your financial information this afternoon, take your laptop down to Starbucks and do your banking down there. You might as well just leave sign checks in the parking lot. Keep that in mind. Disposal is really important. When you hit delete on something, make sure that it's really deleted. Deleting if you think about it, if I'm a criminal and I want dirt, I'm going to go to your delete file. That's one of the first places I'm going to go to because that's where I know the good dirt is. So delete must mean delete when you're on the computer. Now, rule number 1, next slide. There's no guarantee. There's no magic bullet here. All you can do is the best you can do, and with the safest of practices, you can be cyberly secure. The flip side of that is security by obscurity is not a defense. And also, when you get a managed service, I should have made this point. I think it's one of the most important points today, is we talked about all the 60 million lines of code in the Windows 10, and you get all these patch notices we get patch notices weekly. Do you really want to be the one that keeps up with all that? And I'm also I've been quoted nationally with the kind of silly phrase, "There's no patch for stupidity." I never want to be called stupid. So that's another great reason for a managed service. I want to make sure I made that point. So what do? These are the things we've talked about. I only have just a few more minutes, but again, multi-factor authentication, that's dual factor authentication, strong passwords, strong physical service restrictions with IPS firewalls, segmentation of the crown jewels, secure Wi-Fi, having your own secure VPN if you're out in public, app restriction. Again, in your business, look at your business. What applications do you allow to run? And I'm the first to tell you, we found our law firm, we found our girls were doing an extremely good job on eBay and different sales sites at night. And to our shock, we understood that became entry points. It was a social revolution. I mean, to cut some of our secretaries out of their eBaying and other online shopping almost created death warrants in our particular situation, but it's what we have to do, and you have to start thinking of the social engineering and the social revolution if you're going to be safe in this day and time. Ransomware, again, it doesn't have to happen. If it does happen, it's because you're not backing up your information. It's because you're not practicing good cybersecurity. These are the thugs that just come along as pickpockets. They lock up your data until you pay them something. Number one choice you have to make is, are you going to make that first payment? Because 9 times out of 10, it's a down payment. There are certain situations, though, in which you will pay it, where it's a hospital with an ER room that's locked up and cannot operate literally or figuratively unless data is unencrypted. Yet, that might be one of the cases where you really have to consider. Now, I go to some of these things and I hear the cyber brokers say, "Don't worry about the your systems, just buy a lot of cyber insurance." And cyber insurance is one of the important legs of the stool. It's absolutely required, it's absolutely necessary, but it doesn't pay if the systems aren't in check. If you don't have the base system, it's just like buying homeowners insurance and then leaving your front door open every day. Probably going to get denial of coverage in that situation. If you don't have the basic good systems, whether you're going to put them in place yourself, you're going to hire a stack, you're going to keep your patches made, you're going to do all the things we've talked about: encryption, multi-factor authentication, good firewalling, or whether you're going to turn it over to a managed service to handle that for you, you still need cyber insurance. Just realize it's only going to pay if it's only going to be as effective and pay as your systems are in place. I think that covers about my 30 minutes. We'll turn it over to Sheldon now, if that's okay. Ready, Sheldon?
That's great, David. Thank you so much. This was excellent because I know how important it is to so many of our clients, making sure that they're protected, whether it's personal or business, and knowing what firms like ours are doing behind the scenes is also important. And now I want to introduce Sheldon Cuffie. Sheldon is the Vice President, Chief Information Security Officer for Northwestern Mutual. Tremendous person. I've seen him speak a couple of times, and I've been super impressed. Thought leader, 20 plus years focused on enabling business outcomes through technology. And he's responsible for cybersecurity at Northwestern Mutual, information risk, enterprise privacy, and disaster recovery. So basically, Sheldon is responsible for making sure that we keep our clients' data safe. So Sheldon, thank you also so much for joining us.
All right, good morning, everyone. And I'm just going to get the presentation shared up here quickly. And just wanted to say thank you to everyone here for taking time out today to hear about this important topic. We were pretty surprised to hear about the overwhelming demand for the topic. And I'll just extend a lot of what David said here from a client perspective. Really, much of what David talked about in terms of the small to medium business space and the corporate space, that's what we get paid for. That's what we do on a daily basis. And from a Northwestern Mutual perspective, it's really important to my team and I that we are protecting our field force and our clients. We realize that we are handling your personal information, and it's paramount that we don't violate your trust, and that we're protecting that information to the best of our abilities, and that we're investing in our program. And so we can go to the next slide here. And one of the things that we do, so David really gave you the meat of the matter. And what I like to do is really help you think about how to protect yourself personally. And in doing so, through protecting yourself and your loved ones, that behavior tends to permeate into your business, into your workplace. And so really, my goal here is I want you to be a cyber hero. I want you to feel capable and equipped. And depending on what type of superhero you are, you have a tool belt, and you have things that you can use situationally and do to ensure you're safe and that the people around you are safe, including your kids, your parents, other loved ones, and I believe that will permeate into your workplace as well. So let's go into the next slide here. And what we like to talk about, and David really hit this well in terms of target, and since then there have been so many more different breaches that have occurred, and this really gets to the why of why this matters, because now, I was in the armed forces, and you think about artillery and planes, and you think about the battlefield. Well, the battlefield is now coming to our laptops. War is waged essentially with a keyboard and a mouse, and that sounds kind of stark, but it is the brutal reality of what we're facing. So as we go to the next slide here, we really think about. You can advance one slide there, Carrie. Okay. So I wanted to just give you a brief background on what we do here at Northwestern Mutual. So I am the Chief Information Security Officer for the company. We are based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm currently sitting in New York, presenting to you because we have significant offices and assets here. And so we are really covering a nationwide field force, and then over 4 to 5 million clients across the country, across our insurance, investment, and real estate lines of business. And then we also have a fintech company, financial technology company here in New York. And we can go to the next slide. And a little bit of background, this is our Enterprise Technology Command Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This slide is actually a couple of months out of date, so we have 292 cybersecurity professionals that are working diligently to ensure that information is not stolen from our clients, and that our field force is protecting you, that we're protecting our field force, their businesses, their brand, your businesses. We have folks that have really, they have a sense of urgency for this work, and they care about it deeply. So we can go to the next slide. And so what I like to do here is just give you an overview of things you can do to protect yourself. And again, I believe this will permeate into your broader workplaces and your life. So tip number one, and I'll go through these very quickly because I know we want to leave time for questions. Tip number one, don't put your home address in your vehicle's GPS. Many cars are being stolen, a significant amount. There is a rash of car vehicle thefts these days, especially in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I live, because now they don't need to bust your window anymore. In many cases, there are electronic devices that will open your car door by taking over the frequency of your key fob. And so suddenly there is no glass break, or there is no loud noise in the middle of the night. The car's just gone. So what happens when someone steals your car and your home address isn't there? Well, nothing if you put a PIN code on it. And so if you go into the next slide there, this is a picture of an SUV I recently purchased, and it has a PIN code. So I put in, go home, and it brings this code up that only I know, hopefully. And now the attackers cannot utilize my vehicle to now target me and come back and do harm. A second thing to do, let's say your vehicle doesn't have this. This is fairly newer technology. Put an address in your GPS of the local supermarket or a shopping center in the area, because once you get in the general vicinity of your house, you know where to go. Obviously, don't put your neighbor's address in, or somewhere in your neighborhood. That would be bad for someone else, and you don't want to create a situation that way. So, just a little simple tip that a lot of people don't always think about. So we can go on to the next topic here. And number two, use a password that is longer than 16 characters. in many cases, and I do this with clients when we do these in person, I actually ask people ahead of the meeting, what school did you go to? What's the name of your dog? What area do you live in? And in those brief moments, I can get a lot of information on you just through small talk and socialization, right? Well, people are doing that electronically. And with the advent of Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever else you may be using out there, many folks can identify who you are, many of the attributes about you, your alma mater, your maiden name, whatever is unique to you. It's almost all publicly accessible at this point. So you definitely don't want to put your dog's name in your password. You don't want to use your daughter or son's birth date, that kind of thing. Very easy to identify. And so that's where we really need to be careful about the passwords. And you also want to make them longer than 16 characters if possible, because if you utilize what I like to do is I take 2 words, I put a few numbers or special characters in between. Now my character is long, it's strong, and it's easily rememberable. So let's go on to the number 3 here. And this is an example of, okay, this is much longer. And you can see with the strength meter how much stronger it is. The stronger the password, this particular password would take 5 years to crack. A shorter password could take minutes utilizing fairly powerful computers. All right, number 3. So what I advocate here, and you can click through this slide, Carrie, is that you use a password manager. Think of the password manager as your Rolodex to all of your logins and passwords for your digital footprint. One more click there, Carrie. And what this does for you is, and once I inventoried all of my logins and passwords, and this is inclusive of what I need to run my household. I also handle the financial needs for my mother. I'm also a trustee of our church, and so there are login and identity assets there. I found out I had over 230 different logins to orchestrate all of these facets of my life and my community. And so this is where, I don't know about you, but I can't remember all that stuff. And many people, they choose not to use a password manager because they'll use the same login and password for everything. They'll use it 200 times over again. Well, as David just spoke to, and as I just popped up at the top of the slide there have been so many breaches over the years that many of that information is stolen. It's available on the public internet for sale, and it is being used against American and global consumers. So that's where you don't want to use the same password for everything, because if it's breached once, now you have 225 different places that you are vulnerable, and it's a high likelihood that someone will use that login and password. So let's go to number 4. Number 4, David talked about phishing and ransomware and business email compromise. The core tactic there is to trick and deceive. It is using human psychology of things you're comfortable with. Most everyone in America is using Amazon at this point. So we're used to getting Amazon emails all the time. And well, the hackers know that. So they send you an Amazon email as well. And you can do one more click here, Carrie. When you look at this, you'll see that upon further review, by hovering over the customer support.amazon, you find that, well, it didn't come from Amazon at all. It came from neilmid.com when you look at the right hand of the screen. And that is a clear indication this is a fake email. And once you click on it, many different things can happen. it can appear that nothing has happened, but silently software is being downloaded to your computer. And that is where it's really important that you have up-to-date antivirus. You can pick one, Symantec, McAfee. This is a place where I tell folks, don't be cheap. So there is a subscription associated with some of these. It can run you $300 to $400 a year. However, the cost of trying to recover your identity and the assets that are stolen from your devices, it's a small price to pay. All right,
Sheldon, can I interrupt for just a second?
Please do. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have a comical comment, and then a very important comment. But have you ever seen anybody really win a free iPad?
Very rarely, and that's where, if it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true.
I have a chance to win a free iPad almost hourly on my computer some days when it's not blocking the stuff, but that's not real. But you mentioned the antivirus, and I would even tell you that I advocate, especially for the high net worth and ultra high net worth and the SMB, to go a step farther than just traditional AV. To some of the products out there. Cylance makes a great, CYLANCE makes a great product that incorporates machine learning into the AV, because again, these criminals are, I think, more sophisticated, are getting much more sophisticated in what I call the machine learning type AV that we're seeing coming to the market from various places. I think really is the next evolution, and again, more expensive, but when you talk about what the damage is, well worth it.
Absolutely. Another product there that I advocate just for even personal use is Malwarebytes, which is, the on-demand version. Again, there's a little bit of a premium associated with it, $50 a year maybe, but it's I like to use that, and especially on my kids' computers, because they can't watch them all the time, every time, right? And that's where you really need those systems to act on your behalf when you're not around. So let's go to number 5. And given the time, we won't get through all of these, but we will push out the slide decks here just so that you can absorb this content. Stay safe online, talk with your kids about this stuff, ensure that they are cyber aware. It's kind of like when we were kids and they said, don't talk to strangers. Well, don't talk to strangers on the internet as well. Don't click on things that you receive from people you don't know. That's really important. Let's go to number 6 quickly.
I would add too there, watch what your kids bring home, if you don't mind me interrupting one more time. These jump sticks they bring home from school, that's like bringing the flu home. That's the equivalent of whatever they called at school that day, had it at school. You don't know what's on that thing. So you got to be really careful of allowing that to come within your network.
That's a great point. Number 6, this is something I advocate. There are services that will do this for you, but very simply. So, whether I like it or not, I'm a public figure. And if I go speak somewhere, for example, number 3 there, a reporter in the audience literally wrote down everything I said and then posted it. Now, it was a little unnerving. However, I'm pretty careful what I say in public, so it wasn't a big deal. But you definitely want to be aware of what is being posted, and if you have ownership of your identity online. I have a slide later in the deck, for example, if you run a business or, it really doesn't matter who you are, folks are adept at stealing your identity and leveraging it for their own purposes. So I just do a search for myself every now and then, but I utilize this one as an example of what you can find out there. And so if I'm so you all know that I went to Garden Homes Elementary when I was a kid, and if I'm using Garden Homes 123 as my password, well, that's social engineering. Hackers are likely going to leverage that as well. So really really important that you are, and apparently there's a river nature retreat in Trinidad with my last name affixed to it. So maybe I'll show up and maybe I own that place. Who knows? But you know, the point being, you know, definitely you know, have situational awareness online as well as you would for your physical proximity. So number 7. Number 7, this one is really important, is probably the simplest, easiest thing you can do, and easily said, lock before you walk. The majority of people will not walk away from their car without locking it. Many of us will walk away from a computer without locking it. And that's kind of ironic. The total value of information you have access to online, whether it be your accounts, insurance, or other information, is much more valuable than your vehicle in many cases, especially if you're running a small business and especially if you're running a major corporation. I have worked for 5 different companies. And 4 of the companies I have investigated issues where insiders did walk up to an unlocked computer and was able to access information they did not have access to, or maybe, you know, more jokingly sent an email to the CEO to say I love you, but it's from the person's unlocked computer. So this is really important, and you know, literally Windows key and L, or if you're on a MacBook, you lock the device, or you just close the screen and it locks automatically for you. Okay, number 8, and I'll just hit these last 2 here. It's kind of alarming and surprising. The same thing holds true for our phones, as we are all using many more devices. I have a phone, a tablet, a laptop for work. You can see where that digital footprint and attack surface is pretty broad now versus, say, just the laptop and phone I had 10 years ago. So you definitely want to put a PIN code on these devices. 6 digits is better than 4. Now, 4 is better than none, but 6 is really 6 digits, makes it longer, takes longer to crack. Also, I see this a lot, especially in church on Sunday. Parents are giving their phones or tablets to kids to play with. Well, the kids, much of the stuff I just told you about, they, in many cases, don't know what they're clicking on. Ads are popping up in free games. They click on them. You have documents and you've logged into sites on that device. Now you're compromising your digital security. So don't let kids borrow this stuff. This falls into the don't be cheap category. I just bought a used computer. I gave it to my youngest kid, and he can destroy that thing over and over again, and no harm, no foul. It's not going to compromise the rest of my life. Number 9 here. This is a big thing I see a lot as well. And we typically use this for our financial reps as well, because sometimes they will be going from a client's house to a Starbucks to the office. Maybe there is an event after work that they need to attend where they're interacting with clients. And obviously people don't want to cart their laptop into these different places. So really important not to leave devices in your car. The jacket over the laptop approach really doesn't work. And jokingly, we say that, well, they left the Cheez-Its behind and, they stole the laptop. So smash and grab, very common, especially as more cars are being stolen. So last one we'll cover for today is number 10, is to turn on your operating system updates for your phones, your devices, laptop or tablet. This is, again, one of the easiest things you can do to provide an ounce of prevention. So really, what holds true for major corporations like Northwestern Mutual is that security hygiene is essential. There are the basics and the fundamentals that if you do just that, that covers 80% of the risk you incur interacting online. And so really 1 through 10 here, some of these can seem very basic, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do them. And as I said early on, we at Northwestern Mutual take your security very seriously. We take our field advisors' security very seriously. So we focus heavily on the fundamentals and ensuring that our security hygiene is on point. And so much of what we do for a Fortune 100 company is pretty similar to what clients and general end users should do as well. So if you just do those top 10 things, you'll minimize your risk. You can't prevent everything from happening, just like we can't prevent car accidents from happening. There is a probability at play here. But again, just doing a few of these things lowers your risk and drives up your probability of staying safe online. So I hope this was helpful to everybody. Special thanks to David for teaming up, and thanks to the group for spending your time with us today. So I'll turn it back over
Sheldon
to
and David.
the moderators.
Yeah, Sheldon and David, thank you so much. We've got a second group of attendees, and they've got a couple of questions. The first question for both of you, they ask is, I hear there's a dark web, and I hear they have access through the hacks that David mentioned to most of our data. What do we need to know about this dark web and our data, our personal information on this dark web?
It absolutely exists, and it's not something you try to go to yourself. Just like you wouldn't want to walk down a dark alley in the worst part of New Jersey one night. It absolutely exists. The information's on there. There are notification services that'll tell you the information's on there, but again, I wouldn't get too carried away, and this is not an anti-commercial, but I wouldn't get too carried away with the LifeLocks of the world. And you can look at their legal issues they've had, because even if they notify you that your social's on there, or your birth date's on there, or even your name's on there, which one of those are you going to most likely change? You can't change your birth date. You're not gonna, I don't know how to change my social. But these things are on there, but you just got to, again, go back to what Sheldon said and what I said, and protect yourself to the best you can. I would bet that everybody on the phone today, and I don't know a soul on the phone today, probably has something on the dark web.
Yeah, I concur with that. And that is, if you think about where the pirates, they steal the gold and they drag it to their cave. That's what the dark web is. Except on the dark web, it's really become an Amazon type atmosphere, if you will, where now the credentials from the target, from Equifax, from any breach has been stolen. Now they're being offered for sale for pennies on the dollar. What we do from a corporate standpoint is we have those reputational services that David referred to, and because it's inevitable that someone's password is going to be compromised, our service provider notifies us of that, and then what we'll do is we'll automatically change that password. In some cases, we'll change the login depending on what happened, so that whatever now has been exposed is rendered unusable. Great question.
Matthew, I would add, if you want to read a fascinating article on the dark web, I like the author. Just send me an email, but I wrote an article last year called Avoiding the Bullseye, Lessons Learned from Target, but it's an extensive marketplace analysis of the dark web and how it's a very efficient economic market. And it makes for a fun read if you want to read it.
David, thank you. I'll email you for that, and I'll also forward that along with our taped webinar to all of our attendees and a whole list of other attendees who weren't able to join us today. My second question from our other group is, and I know you just addressed LifeLock, but there's Experian, LifeLock, a whole bunch of these other. Should I even bother with them? And is that the best thing that I can do to protect myself?
Yeah. So LifeLock is a great example of it's available. I'm not crazy about it, but what I will say, and David and I might differ on this. We'll see what happens here, but it is an indicator, right? It's a beacon. It's something that could potentially give you an indicator. Now, me being an IT professional, security guy for 20 plus years, I tend to, like to try and figure out things myself. However, as I've gotten busier over the years, one, trying to protect a Fortune 100 company, you need services that can pop alerts and give you some indication as to what's happening. However, LifeLock, Experian, pick any one of these, the depth and capability of it. It's an indicator. It's not a prevention tool. So we typically call it more of a detection tool. But I have run into circumstances, whether it be clients or otherwise, that said, well, I had LifeLock and my identity was still stolen. And that's absolutely correct. So there is no silver bullet, so in some cases you'll want to use multiple services. The Experian one, for example, I have it. It comes with whatever service I already paid for, so I use it. But I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket there.
I think we agree totally. And again, I point you to some of the new silence products, especially that are being developed for the individuals. And I'm not commercializing anything today, but I love the Cujo product that's been put out for the home. And you might CUJO, you might look into that. Again, this is a very fastly evolving area, and people are out there trying to secure and trying to stop some of this, and it's evolving daily.
Thank you. And I know we've gone a little bit over, but I have just one last question. What do you do if you're hacked? Was asked by one of our attendees.
Okay, so I can speak to that. Similar to what I just said about if your information is exposed on the dark web, you should change all of your passwords immediately. You, depending on how deep the hack has occurred, in many cases, a home computer has been compromised or a device. There is a little bit of truth to Apple products are a bit safer. You shouldn't hang your hat on that either, however. But what I've seen in experience is Android phones are typically hacked more often than Apple phones. So one, identify the root cause of the compromise, understand where the physical breaches occurred, if you will. And then two, change all of your passwords. Three, depending on severity, I would change an email address as well, because as David mentioned, once you've been targeted, it's very likely that you will be retargeted, maybe not even by the same people, but from alternate attackers that have purchased that information on the dark web. I have gone so far as, so the Yahoo breach, I started to get so much spam, and it's very difficult to change an email address, right? And it took me about 6 months to change all of my relationships over, but I finally turned it off because it was just too much of an attack vector for me.
I would add to that, I think that's excellent advice, and I think that's mostly spoken to the individual, but to the SMB, go back to my slide deck. You've got to have the intrusion. Everybody of any size, remember, everybody's of interest to somebody. You've got to start with that plan, and you've got to just do those simple things that's out there. The more you do, think of it, if we have 3 houses in a row. We got Matthew's house, my house, and Sheldon's house. And I'm the one in the middle, but Sheldon's house and Matthew's house on either side of me have a CPI or an ADT sign in the yard. Which one's the criminal going to go to? They're going to go to the one without the sign, the easiest entry point. People, even criminals, are essentially lazy and don't want to get caught most times. You got to assume that that's a human factor. So think about as many of the things that you can put in place. And again, if you're not comfortable putting them in place, I literally want you to think the frontier of all this is going to be the managed service. And we're talking about managed security service. Your regular IT providers have very little more clue than we have on the phone here today. This is so new. So you go to that, and as preventative as you can be, that's going to be the least likely chance that you're going to be hacked. But once you're hacked, you got to have a plan in place and be able to call the right managed service provider.
Yeah, I'll extend that thought. That's an excellent thought. And think of it like your car. And you know, at least I grew up fixing, you know, my dad's Ford, a bunch of them in a row, and that was a very simple time. Cars did not have the technology and capability they have now. So I recently bought a second car that I'm restoring, and it has some of these new, new capabilities in it. And frankly, I'm struggling to. I thought it was a great idea to buy the car, but I'm not fully capable to repair it as I thought. So now I need to reach out to a specialist or an auto technician that actually understands this type of car and can really dig into the details and make sure we're doing it properly. So think of it that way in terms of, and I think what David has said spot on. There are some things that we can do ourselves, and there are some things where you need experts to help you and ensure that you're doing the right things.
Well, and you got to have an instant response, and thank you for that comment. But what you often see is this happens. The first entrepreneurial response to this is to unplug everything. And that might be the worst thing you do, because then you lose all your information and all traceability and all chance of recovery. So
Right.
Again, find that managed service that you like. I use a company called Rocus Networks here. Find that company you like and stick with them and make them part. This is a regular part of your team. This is like your medical service providers, where you have the heart doctor and you got the intern and you got all these different people. They're part of your key people that operate on you from day to day. Think of your business in the same fashion.
Yeah, great point. So last thing I'll say on that, and give it to you from a corporate standpoint. We literally keep those we have those services in-house. We also keep what I'll call a SWAT team on retainer, where they will get on a plane and they will be at our office within 4 hours to help us recover from a breach or an incident. So I think that's excellent advice from David. Think about your ongoing needs and who you have helping you service your needs. And if those are one and the same, so if you have a massive breaches, we call fires in some cases, or head-on collisions, depending on who you're talking to, then you need different resources. So you have to think about it both ways.
And with a 60% chance of bankruptcy, if one happens, you really have to think about it.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, David and Sheldon, thank you so much for this. Between our two different groups, we had over 100 attendees. This was by far our most well attended of our quarterly webinars. Tells you how important this is to people and becoming more important by the day, and also tells you how important it is for us here at Northwestern Mutual, with now 292 cybersecurity professionals. And I heard Sheldon, you speaking, and you said 4 or 5 years ago there was just a fraction of that. So again, thank you everybody for attending. We really appreciate this. And I'm going to be sending, we recorded our webinar, and I'm going to send a copy of the recording to all of our attendees. Thank you again.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Sheldon.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.